Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, we have with us Pastor Sam Smith. He's the founding pastor of Foundation FWB Church in Grove, Oklahoma. He's also an alumnus of Southeastern Free Baptist College. And he's got a wonderful family there. But today, we're going to talk to him about how God has used him in the chaplaincy. So, Pastor Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, my friend.
Thank you for letting me be a part of this. Appreciate the opportunity.
You bet, buddy. So let's start out by just saying or asking the question, how is it that God really kind of prepared you and drew you into the chaplaincy as a pastor?
Well, I will say this. I didn't think about being a chaplain ever, I guess, growing up. Didn't really come as a thought process, didn't come as a calling necessarily. When I moved to Grove or even growing up, never really thought about it. And whenever I moved to Grove to plant a church, I think as a church planter and even as a pastor, when you come to a new community where you don't know anybody, the first thing you want to do is you want to get connected in any way you possibly can. You're going out, you're volunteering, you're doing everything you can to try to get to know your community. And of course, we didn't have any network at all. There was no congregation. It was me, my wife, and my 1-year-old son, or wasn't even 1 year old yet, just a baby. And that was all we knew when we moved here. There was nobody. And we didn't have a team that moved with us. We were just going to plant a church, and we had to make all those connections brand new. We didn't even know a mechanic or a doctor or anybody to go to when we had those kind of issues. So we just started visiting around. I met a few of the local pastors, and I reached out to other church planters that I knew that had done kind of the same thing. And one of the pastors and church planters that I knew was Howard Gortney. He was from Oklahoma, so we kind of had that connection. And I reached out to him. He had planted a church in Arizona at that time, and God had used him in a great way. And I talked to him. I said, how did you make some connections? What was one of the best ways that you kind of broke through that wall? And he had asked me if I ever thought about law enforcement chaplaincy. And I never really thought of it. And just kind of was something that I guess I kind of maybe put in the back of my mind, but I didn't even really consider it even then when I moved to Grove. And then I went to a couple of Ministerial Alliance meetings, talked with a couple of pastors. And I even said to one of the pastors, I said, are there police chaplains here in town? Does anybody serve as a chaplain, as a pastor? And one of the pastors told me, he said, well, the police chief in Grove is a Catholic, and he doesn't want any police chaplains. He won't like any of us to go be police chaplains, talking about us as a Protestant ministers or anything like that. And so I said, okay. But I'd already set up a meeting with the police chief to kind of meet up with him and discuss, the possibilities, and just to be able to introduce myself, because I was trying to get to know the people in the community. Right. And I went and met with him, knowing that he was Catholic. I went in, and when I sat down, we met together, but I told him every Catholic joke that I'd ever heard. And he basically told me every Baptist joke that he knew as well. Uh-huh. And from that moment on, we hit it off very well. And we've been friends ever since. And we go to lunch on a regular basis. And he asked me, he said, if I would be willing to serve as a chaplain in our community. And that's basically where this started back in 2008 when we moved here to Grove, was that connection with the police chief and Brother Howard Gortney, who kind of opened that door in my mind to kind of start doing that. And from that point on, I've been able to serve in various roles, not just in law enforcement chaplaincy, but even at the hospital, in Civil Air Patrol, getting called out for several different avenues. Because, as a chaplain, there's so many different ways and so many different types of chaplains that can serve in different areas. But man, it has been an awesome role to be able to fill here, especially in a small town, and being a new pastor. It opened doors that never would have been opened for me.
And you have to do some difficult things as a chaplain, and you've done that. Share with us a little bit about the boating accident that happened, but it sounds like it was quite a catalyst to help you to help other people there in the community.
Yeah, that was actually a rough deal. It was right around Memorial Day weekend, so we're kind of coming up on the anniversary of it now. But the it was actually a doctor in town. His daughter had just came home uh, from college, and anyhow, they had gone out on a ride the boat, and basically through an accident, she died on that boat, and I didn't really even know the family, didn't know exactly what was going on, but got the phone call, and it wasn't even from our local law enforcement community. It was from another law enforcement group, kind of the lake patrols called the GRDA here, and they didn't have any chaplains, but they knew that the city of Grove has chaplains. And so they called and said, "Hey, we need somebody." And so anyhow, that's kind of how I got called out on that particular incident. But man, that was a difficult call. And to be able to go in and be there with a mom and dad who did not expect that conversation, and to be there and walk them through that. And luckily, there was another chaplain that showed up who was from the hospital and was able to come and kind of be there with that family who knew him a little bit better. And sometimes it's all in just connecting them with another local pastor to be able to help them during those difficult times. But it's definitely taught me a lot about, well, I'll put it this way. Sometimes whenever you pastor, you kind of get in your own tunnel and you
Yes.
get tunnel vision. But as a chaplain, it really broadens your scope of being able to minister to people who have no faith background or a different type of faith background. And you want to try to reach them where they're at. And sometimes it may even push you out of your comfort zone. I've had families that come from a Catholic background, and they've asked me before, they said, "Do you perform last rites?" I said, "Well, I don't necessarily do that." And they're okay with it. But I said, "I'll tell you what," I said, "if you're okay with me, let's pray the Lord's Prayer." And they're usually satisfied with maybe being involved in doing that with me. And I don't want to confuse them to make them think that I'm doing something for them that they think is going to help their loved one in that kind of situation. And I don't, obviously I'm not, I'm not together with where they're at on that particular part of it. And that's not the time to have an argument or a theological debate in that. But I want to try to offer them some comfort, and hopefully God will open a door to be able to minister to them greater at another time. But I want to be able to be there for them at that particular time.
Yes, I guess what you're saying, Pastor Sam, is it's kind of opened the door for you to minister to all kinds of people, and
Yes.
and a lot of people that don't know Jesus, you've been able to work with and help in those situations.
Yeah. And you deliver a lot of difficult news. That was difficult news for that family
Yes.
whose daughter died in that boating accident. And even at those times, whenever you, again, living in a small town, you see those families even
Yes.
after those situations, and usually it's a very good interaction. They'll come up and they'll say, "Hey, do you remember whenever you came by my house?" And I say, "Yeah, I do." And they'll just usually will say, "Thank you and appreciate you being there." And even that's difficult. But even God has opened a door to be able to minister to some families to some degree, to be able to let me be a part of the community more than I ever could have been.
Absolutely. So initially you were trying to meet people, you're trying to minister, trying to do what you could to help the community, and you were doing it because you were trying to build a church. So how has it impacted your church, you being a chaplain in the community?
Obviously, it's brought some families to our congregation simply because of the connections. And then also, maybe even some of them, I'm going to say probably even some, not necessarily from the law enforcement community, but from some other different types of communities. Serving as a chaplain for one area in a small town, you get called out for other things as well, maybe for any kind of fire department that maybe doesn't have a chaplain, but they know your number, they know where you're at, they'll call you out to be able to come to a maybe a critical scene or something like that to help maybe make a notification or to be there for a family that loses their home or something like that, knowing that you can help connect the dots for them, or even be able to be called out to a funeral home that has a family that doesn't have a minister or a church, and they just need someone to help walk them through their grief, and get a lot of phone calls like that. So it's opened the door for a lot of those. In fact, I get a ton of phone calls. I was trying to add up just in the past 17 years living in Grove now, it's been well over 300 funerals that I've done in this community. And we kind of jokingly call them that I've kind of the minister of death here in Grove. But I think that's been another door that's opened up to be able to go when families don't have a pastor or something like that. They say, well, is there a chaplain around that can do that? And a lot of times my number is the one they're given from the local funeral home, because it's just convenient. And I will say this too, when you are in a town for 17 years, I've been around longer than a lot of other pastors too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it has really bonded you with this community.
It has. I've had somebody asking me just the other day, they said, were you born, did you go to school here? Were you grow up here in Grove? And I said, no, I didn't. I grew up a couple hours away, and they said, well, it seems like you know everybody here. And I said, well, I've tried really hard to do that and make connections. And even in a small town too, you find out that a lot of people are related.
Yes.
So when you do a funeral or you are there for one family during a difficult situation, it does bring a lot of connections together.
Yeah, that's good. So you can say what you set out to do 17 years ago, it has worked. This church has been launched and is well far in existence. And you got a guy looking at you saying, hey, Sam, did you grow up here? Because you know everybody. What you're saying is it's really worked. It has really worked.
God's blessed it for sure.
Well, Pastor Sam, thank you so much for sharing with us today. If I'm listening and I'm a pastor and I'm thinking, hey, I'd like to do this, it sounds like what you did was you just went and talked to the police chief, even though people said there's no reason to do it. You went, you hit it off with him, and then that just led to one thing led to another, and that's how you got into this in the first place.
That's pretty much it. And I will say this too, there's so many different ways to serve. There's not just a law enforcement chaplain. I know there are other guys that serve as a chaplain for the local high schools and middle schools and stuff like that. Some schools are open to have chaplains come in, even for their sports teams. They'll have chaplains that come in. There are some businesses that actually have corporate chaplains that come in and do stuff for their local businesses. Obviously, hospitals, they've got some chaplains that come in and do work within their hospital stuff. I serve here at our local hospital as a chaplain too. It was kind of a natural thing when they were asking who could come and serve. Our city has a stipend for chaplains to come and be able to help folks through the court system. And even it could be a little side income for some people to be able to do it, maybe even through hospice. There's a lot of hospice chaplains that serve. So it's a way that you can reach out in your community. It's a way you can make a little bit of a side income and help impact the kingdom for Christ. If it's something that anybody would be interested in doing, it's not against ministry at all. I just think it's another avenue that's open for us. And I think the world is crying out for it.
Excellent. So true. I think you're spot on with that, Brother Sam. So you're listening, you're like, hey, what are my next steps? I am going to encourage you maybe to reach out to Free Will Baptist North American Ministries, Chaplain Terry Alston. You're like, hey, he was a military chaplain, and you're correct. But if you'll email us at questions@nafwb.org, we'll try to get you in touch with somebody like Pastor Sam or somebody that might be doing something you're interested in and try to get you connected. But because I think I've told you, Pastor Sam, we've got the hope or the goal of having 100 chaplains across our denomination, because we really do think that's the way to impact many of our communities with local law enforcement, hospitals, hospice, and all the rest of it. What an opportunity as you've shared with us today. Well, thank you, Pastor Sam, for being with us today.
Yes, sir. And there's so many different ways.
There are, aren't there? Well, we appreciate you sharing with us today. And I also want to give a shout out to you, buddy. You're a little writer there. You wrote an article for us called Local Chaplaincy. It's in the June edition of One Magazine, June, July 2025. So check that out. You can read it online, or subscribe, or you can listen to it. It's even available in Spanish if you would like to see it in that version. So, Sam, thank you for writing that for us today, buddy.
Thank you so much.
We want to thank you for joining us today as well. Maybe you know somebody that would benefit from this podcast. Please take it and please share it with them. Remember, every little thing we do, it really does matter. It really does help. And we truly are better when we work together. We're better together. Thank you for joining us today.